Hello and welcome. Normally I record B-roll for these reviews early on in whatever I'm talking about so that I can have footage that plays that people can see that's interesting but that doesn't spoil anything. However, with End of Dragons, I played End of Dragons all the way through overnight, basically. Having worked that day and then streamed for a couple hours, I wanted to beat End of Dragons before Secrets of the Obscure came out. However, audio on it isn't great. There's a couple moments that I was able to rescue, but the audio just wasn't wonderful. I think just recording that many hours, it came out to almost 20 hours of footage. That many hours of footage just did not go well, and I won't make that mistake again. From now on, I'll chunk it up. So I do apologize about that, but I've included a few clips, and all of the B-roll does not have the audio. So the B-roll itself is fine, and you'll see me slowly flag over the course of the hours or look slack-jawed like an idiot because, look, I've been up for 27 hours, but I wanted to beat it, and I really enjoyed my time with it, and I want to talk about it, and I'm about to talk about it, and so please enjoy the End of Dragons review, and thanks for putting up with this long intro. End of Dragons isn't perfect. There's a lot of things in it that I didn't necessarily love, but the little moments really sold me on End of Dragons, and despite the fact that I was getting very sleepy at some points. Oh, spooky ghost.
I'm glad you've been having such a good time.
I'm sorry, Commander. I know I failed, but I've learned a lot.
I woke up. There were a couple moments where I was just about to have to call it and say, you know what? I don't care that I want to play Secrets of the Obscure right when it launches. I cannot beat this in time. I need to go sleep. And then the next story thing would come up, and I would say, you know what? No. I have to see what happens. I have to know. I like these characters a lot. So, as we talk about End of Dragons here, I want to first talk about mechanically what's going on with End of Dragons, and then we can talk about the story, because I don't want to spoil too much, obviously, from the story. Mechanically, End of Dragons has some kind of boring masteries. It has some really interesting elite specs. I like a lot of them. I play Mechanist as my main now that I can use Hammer Mechanist because of Secrets of the Obscure. I like a lot of the elite specs that come with End of Dragons. I like a lot of the maps. I think the maps are cool, even if it is a lot of green. I think the maps are pretty cool. I haven't yet got my turtle mount, but I don't love a lot of the masteries. I like to fish in this game. Fishing's fun in this game. I maxed that mastery out first. Might have been a mistake, but the skiffs are okay. I like my skiff. I got the longboat, the Viking longboat skiff. I like it. I just don't feel like the masteries here added near as much as like Heart of Thorns, Path of Fire did. And because I'm still in the process of crafting my first legendary weapon, which is a Generation 1 legendary weapon, I haven't gotten into crafting the Generation 3 legendaries, though I've heard those are easier to make, so that's cool. Should have waited to continue working on legendary weapons, but I want my Juggernaut, so I'm not going to wait. I like the maps, even if I do think there's a little bit too much green in them. Seitung Province is a lot of fun. It's a big spread out village with a lot of stuff going on in between it. The hero points are fun, and I like the raptor taxis and their use here. I think it's really well done. It just doesn't feel like there's a lot necessarily going on in the map, even though it's great if you want to fish. New Koenig City, I'm torn on. On the one hand, this is a huge bustling city. On the other hand, I kind of wish the city was its own individual zone, kind of like, you know, Divinity's Reach and other places like that. The Grove, you know, because it doesn't really work as a hub for the expansion because it's not even a part of the map like Amnoon was. It is the map. The entire map is the city, which makes it, again, really huge, really cool, a lot of vertical progression, things like that, but it also makes it feel really weird because it's full of enemies, you know? Like, how do normal people live here? And that took me out of it every time when I was enjoying myself in New Koenig City, especially in like the Ministry Ward where it was like, yeah, everything's cool here. This is a city. And then you go across a bridge and, oh, there's a bunch of ether blades over here. Or, oh, there's a bunch of enemies over here. And especially if you go into like old Kaineng, it's like, yeah, no, that's all enemies. I don't know, it's a weird mix of a zone, and I kind of wish it was New Kaineng City and then old Kaineng was the map, you know, and New Kaineng City was just a chunk of that. The Echovald Wilds, I did that every time when I was talking about it while I was in it, is a cool map. I like it. It's very... It feels to me like it was trying to bring back the feeling of a Heart of Thorns map with the verticality of it, and I don't know that it necessarily succeeded there, and a lot of it is just the roots and the branches, man. Yes, it is a big forest in a lot of ways, but man, the map is really samey in places. I like the parts that are very different, right? Arborstone is kind of cool. I like the Brotherhood base. The Junkyard's cool. The Melandru's Hope is fun. I like Mori Village and Lake Lugardis, you know, but most of the map to me is just really samey. And then the last two maps, Dragon's End, that's a really cool story map, right? That's a Dragonfall. That's a Dragonstorm. That's a good story map. I don't know that I'm going to spend a lot of time in there just exploring and doing stuff, but I'll go there for the meta, right? Like, that's a good meta map. And then Gyala Delve, I don't know. Gyala Delve is a weird map. I kind of like it, but I feel like in the same amount that I kind of like it, I kind of don't like it. It's a map where the story takes you all the way across it, which is one I always really love when the game does that, right? You get to go through all the major sections of the map through the course of the story. But also, man, I just want to get down to the deep sometimes, and I don't want to have to wait for the meta event to do it. So it's got like a weird mix of being a meta map, like the story maps like Dragonfall, Dragonstorm, Dragon End, and being a kind of cool map in the quarry and everything there, right? So it's a weird one. I don't know how I feel about it. And when I look at the Jade Sea and all the other maps that should be in there and there aren't any, it makes me sad. You can't tell me there's a place called the Great Turtle Highlands above Gyala Delve and not let me go there. You can't tell me about Drowned Kaineng and not let me go there. Mechanics aside, let's talk story before it goes deep. Ooh. Okay, yeah, no, Whew. Sorry. Yeah, I was losing it there for a minute. We're good. We're fine. Into Dragons had a big job to do. It had to wrap up the Dragon Saga. It had to try and recover from what happened in the Champions episode of Icebrood Saga. And it had to try and wrap up a lot of character arcs all together. I don't think it was successful in all of those things, but I do think it was successful in some of them. There were a lot of hanging questions left over from Icebrood Saga, and I don't feel like Ender Dragons tackled all of them super well. Like, what's going on with Bram? Well, he's back home, and he's dealing with his guilt and everything. Okay, sure, yeah. That's really all you get right up until the end. And you have, you know, well, hey, is Aurene going to be okay with the fact that all the magic has gone somewhere? How is she doing? We're not really going to cover that because she's just antsy for adventure. Like, sure, I get where you need to get us moving quickly. You don't have time to cover everything. We don't have time to talk, you know, with Ritlock and figure out what's going on with him and Krisha and trying to repair everything there. In a lot of ways, it feels like a completely separate story that also has to wrap up the other ones. And I think there really needed to be a middle section in between Icebrood Saga and End of Dragons, but there was no time for that as far as I understand how the production went. But right away, we go to, hey, Gorik is meeting an old colleague, and Taimi's upset about it, and we go to Lornar's Pass, and, oh, it's the Ether Blades, and things are bad, right? And so from here, I should probably say there's going to be spoilers from this point on because we're talking story. Probably should have added that in sooner, but, you know, I'll go back in post and add that in there. This whole sequence with Anka doing stuff and Maitrin trying to rein her in and you having to jump from ship to ship is really interesting. There's a lot going on with the Ether Blades here where they've been going through the mists and it's messed with them. They are not exactly who they used to be in a way that's really interesting. And unfortunately, I don't feel like we get as much as I would like for us to of why that's happening or exactly what happened. I wish we got more background on what happened to them in there, but it seemed like, from what I understand, they had to watch themselves and even kill some of other versions of themselves while going through there. And of course, my Trin has been infected, is maybe the word, with Scarlet Briar, and she is now a revenant with Scarlet as her spirit, which is crazy cool of an idea, and I kind of wish we could get as a spec. Understand why we don't, but it would be fun. Then we get a fun little jail cell sequence with Goric after Aurene gets hurt, and this was an interesting little sequence. I liked it. I like Goric a lot, as I've mentioned that a few times, and there's a lot of Goric in End of Dragons, and I think all it did was make him better in my mind. I could see people being annoyed by it, but I really like what they did with Goric throughout the course of this expansion. Now, as we spend this time with Goric, there's a lot of different ways that we could handle the prison cell, but eventually they'll just let you out, and that's where we get introduced to Rama and his hat. And I like Rama a lot. I think if End of Dragons did one thing for me, it was sell me on Rama. I really, really liked Rama by the end of this, and I was fully sold on the final story chapter, as it were, the getting extra time with Rama and trying to help him with his love life, and fully on board with all that. I love Rama. Jory and Cass are here, and they seem better in some ways. They seem like they've worked through whatever was a problem between them, but obviously that's a them thing, and I didn't feel like it was really a good thing to ask. Which I think in a lot of ways tells me how much I like these characters, that I'm treating them like people, where it's like, look, that's whatever you got going on, that's between you. I don't feel like it's my place to get involved. When, like, in most games, yeah, I'd be all over. I want to know exactly, tell me everything. I want every bit of lore that I can find. And so I think that is a good step in the, hey, these characters are very good. Jory and Cass get to do quite a bit of stuff here. Cass becomes, our outreach to the Empress. And then we have Jory, of course, keeping My Trin captive and trying to keep track of her. And we're going to get to My Trin. I really like My Trin in this expansion. I think it's cool that Cantha has like this uptick of technology, and they can do a lot more stuff than we can because they're using Jade Tech, and as we find out later, what Jade Tech is powered by. But Taimi gets kind of sidelined here for a little while with June, and Taimi is it almost feels like they were trying to do the Taimi Scarlet Briar thing again, but I feel like the Taimi I know should have been able to see through that. And so it's kind of frustrating to see her just be like drooling over June's tech. Now, granted, towards the end of the story, Taimi comes around and acts like Taimi again. But it was just kind of sad for me to be like, oh, I guess here we go again. And there's also Aurene here, right? Who is crash landed. She's resting. She's recovering. But Suwan is speaking to her. And Suwan, of course, being the ocean dragon, the last of the dragons other than Aurene. I like what they're doing with Suwan giving you the visions. I think it's very confusing the first time it happens, because I didn't realize I needed to step forward. And so then I just kept stepping forward and stepped right past what I was supposed to be looking at. And there's a wall there. I kind of wish it had just been a cutscene instead, Like, it's a cool idea, but I kind of wish it had just been a cutscene. The My Trin fight is pretty cool. The Avon fight is pretty good as well. But it's where it really comes down to, hey, this is Scarlet, of course. And that was fun. Scarlet's Echo is really interesting. I wish we got to hear that dialogue. It's why I kind of wish that we could have Scarlet as an Echo or as a Revenant spirit, But I thought it was a really nice touch having Cass be like, when Ritlock was trying to harness his powers, he wore, a blindfold. And so then Mai does it and it helps her, I really liked the opening stuff here where you took My Trin around New Kynig City and tried to help her both calm down and prove that you could trust her and all that fun stuff there. I like going around New Kynig City doing the story. I thought it was pretty good. And the Jade Tech going haywire and acting up, that was really interesting, and I wanted to know more about what was going on there. The power plant instance was really long, and I don't hate it because it gave us some really cool information, and going across on the tram was really fun, and there was some good story dialogue back and forth between Gorik and Jory there. But man, did it feel like it took forever. There's good stuff there. I don't know. I didn't love that one. I forgot to mention we'd already met Yao by that point. But I like Yao a lot. Very interesting character. We get a lot more Yao in Kiala Delve and in those last couple chapters. But really, really interesting character. I feel like, maybe I'm crazy here, but I feel like there was more we were supposed to get story-wise with all these characters that have been introduced, and then Secrets of the Obscure takes us completely somewhere else, and we don't even really mention them, you know? And it's like, well, sure, I get it, but it really feels like they were setting up another chunk of the world that we were going to be doing stuff in. Path of Fire into Living World Season 4, right? Heart of Thorns into Living World Season 3. And I don't know, maybe there's more to come for Cantha in the future, but it feels weird to me that we spent all this time with these new characters and then that's just it. They're done, you know? But again, the expansion, it's over. We're on to a new one. That doesn't mean we're not going to come back in the future. I'm jumping ahead because I'm thinking about all the stuff with Yao and just like, man, between Yao and Rama and June, we spent a lot of time with some really cool characters. I hope they're not forgotten. And for all that said, though, I do want to mention in here, and I'll talk about it more in the Secrets of the Obscure review whenever I finish that, I do think it's really interesting to go to a new place and meet a bunch of new people and learn their stories. I think that's a lot of fun. I just know in an MMO, let's not forget them either, you know? And that's not to say they will. Maybe I'm borrowing troubles from tomorrow and this whole section was stupid, but I'm going to leave it in anyway. After the power plant and trying to help June relax, June is very much not okay with what we're doing. And we know by this point that Anka is using the extractor. It seems like we blew up the power plant, so we're in trouble. And people aren't happy. Suwon has run off, and Suwon is losing it because of the extractor. There's a really sad chunk in here where you have to fight the zombified members of the research team. And it's just like, man, they deserve better than for Anka to use Zaitan's magic against them. You guys were just doing their job, you know? From there, we get into my favorite part of the expansion, which is where we team up with Rama and Navon, and we try to clear our name. I think what I like the most about this chunk of the story is that it feels like the commander is just getting fed up with things not working, but also the commander can't just not help people, right? So it's, hey, Suwon's on the loose. She's been corrupted. We have to stop her and either help her or kill her. We need to help Oreen. We need to save Cantha, also by which save the rest of the world. We need to stop Anka. But how do we do that? Let's just try and help these people for now and see if it gives us any kind of advantage. And that leads us to Ayumi and the Kestrels. And I like Ayumi a lot. She's a really fun character. I think that she got a lot of good growth throughout the course of this arc in a way that I really liked. And that leads us to catch a spider, which is where we go after Anka's device and Anka herself. We meet up with Kanak and Saida, and Kanak wants to open up a bar, a club. Sorry, let's use his word, a club and casino. And you know what? Sure, man, why not for Kanak? I still miss his previous voice actor, but Matt Mercer does a good job here. Again, just as he did in Icebreed Saga, and I like Kanak a lot, so I'm all for it. Going into this, I had a preconception because someone, I thought, spoiled for me that Kanak dies in End of Dragons. And so I had a preconception that Kanak was going to die. And so I was desperately worried about it the whole time. That doesn't happen. It never happens. So I was on the edge of my seat at all times, because a commenter had told me back in my Heart of Thorns review that Canuck was going to die in End of Dragons. And so I was on the edge of my seat, desperate to try and save Canuck, didn't know what I needed to do if I could, enjoying every moment I had with him. I even took Canuck on the date later because of how much I love him and was glad that he was alive. But anyway, that's all aside, right? This is a really interesting chunk of story here, and maybe my favorite reveal of the expansion, because it's here that Anka reveals that the void is leaking out because of what we've done, because the dragons we've killed, everything's out of balance, and the void is coming in, and she believes it's only right and just that the void is what wipes us out and let the world reset, and we can't let that happen, so we stop her. And I kept expecting her to like be arisen or for her to like be a hologram, but no, she dies. She's gone. Gorik doesn't take this super well, but we're there for him. You know, we're bros, me and Gorik. And so ever since Blish died, I've been trying to be there for Gorik much as I can. Gorik goes to use the extractor and it is trapped, because of course it is. And we have a piece of it, something we can prove was used, and get June back on our side. And that doesn't go as well as we'd like, because first we go to Lee, right? And we try to get Lee to understand. Rama just knows the man who raised him, the man who taught him how to fight and taught him to be an inspector, would be there for him. This is a really good fight, with Rama taking on Lee while you take on the elite guard, and then you work your way back up there to be able to take on Lee. It's a really fun fight. I just barely missed the achievement for time for it, so I'm going to have to redo it at some point. But it's a really fun fight, especially since they had a big Jade mech, and of course I'm running Mechanist, so I've got my Jade mech, and it was really fun. I liked it a lot. It was a really fun sequence. Also, heartbreaking for Rama, right? Like, he's having a really hard time with it. It's very good. It's very good. And it shows the corruption that's happening inside even the Minister of Security has become the leader of the purists, you know? And so Captain Min takes him away, and Rama is with us. Suwon's not going to make it much longer. The Void's pretty much taking her over, so we go to talk to June, and this is when Taimi is on our side here. We do some cool puzzles, and this is where I was starting to flag really hardcore in my all-night-long 11-hour straight run from Chapter 3 on in the expansion. I was starting to fall apart here, but once we get to June, everything gets really interesting. June falls apart, basically. She'd rebuilt Cantha. She was the one that had done all this. She was the reason that Cantha got to survive the way it did today, and she wasn't going to let you stop her until you have to prove it. And there's a really wonderful part of this as you're going through her lab and everything, where you find out about her family. She's doing this to try and give her family a better life. But if she keeps on the path she's on, her family's going to get destroyed by the Void, and they're going to be gone. And that is what Taimi focuses on that finally gets through to her. And I like that it's not that we got through to her. June hates us. Taimi gets through to her by appealing to, we're trying to make Cantha better too. And June finally listens. And then we're able to move forward together. From here, the story's kind of a rush, right? We go to the Jade Sea, try to plant the extractors around everywhere, get Suwon there and try to remove the Void, and then it coalesces and attacks us. It's a really good instance. I liked this instance a lot, and it was difficult. I was having a hard time holding this together. I didn't know if it was because I was just really tired, or if it was because, hey, at this point, these things hit really hard. Maybe you're supposed to lose way faster than I did, but I held out for a while before I got to use Oreen's power to go and help all of the NPCs, and I love all of them at this point, so I was really excited to go help them. I didn't want anybody to die, and again, I thought at this point Canuck was going to die, so I was desperately trying to get through there and help them all, and as I did, I got to take on each of the Elder Dragons again in a way, right? In a small part of them. And we got to have a little bit of a fight with Zaitan and with Jormag and with Primordus and with Krokotoric and with Mordramoth. And it was good stuff. As the Void is falling apart and Suwon's calling for help, there's a lot of really good character moments in here. Gorik and Rama fighting desperately to hold off Jormag. And You're helping them, and the two of them bonding more and more as Gorik is fighting. Gorik, the coward who hid before, is fighting because even he knows how bad this is, right? Like, you go, Gorik. There's some really good dialogue earlier on where Marjorie is impressed with how Gorik fought, and Rama's impressed with how Gorik fought, and it's just like, yeah, look, Gorik's finally getting the respect he deserves, man. I love Gorik. Kanak and Saida are fighting Primordus, and you help them out. Ayumi, Yvonne fighting Krakatoric, and help them out. And you get some really good dialogue here of like Ayumi being like, yeah, look, I am good enough. You know, I had ran before. My people always kept away. Maybe we should be around more people. Maybe we should try and open up a little more. And it's like, heck yeah, man. Around this point, we see the Void is also attacking Holbrecht, the Black Citadel, Sandswept Isle, and other places, right? It's all around attacking all of our allies. We get to Krakatoric, and Marjorie is protecting Casimir, who has been, like, beat down. You get to save him. Feels good. Then with Kaith and Logan, you finally go take on Zaitan, right? Just felt really good to, with the two of them, go do it, you know, just as we did with the Pact before. It was great. I don't know if it was better or worse than the original. No, I'm joking. It was definitely better than the original Zaitan fight. We defeat the Void, say goodbye to Suwan. Aurene absorbs the last of her magic, and Suwan is gone. Aurene becomes the last Elder Dragon, and she goes to sleep. You get a little moment where you go back and talk to her first before she goes to sleep, but she goes to sleep. And you don't know if you're ever going to see her again, and you're probably not gonna, right? That'll be a Guild Wars 3 thing if that ever happens. But it's kind of bittersweet. We took this egg, and we hatched it, and we raised it, and we were its champion. And now she's gone. But because she's gone, the world can move forward. And I think it was really well done. There's a lot about End of Dragons that I think needed more, right? I didn't even mention Mai Trent's death earlier. I would have loved to have more Mai Trent, but her death was beautiful, and I need to give it the moment it deserves. I can't believe I forgot to mention it during the escape, where she boldly stood up to defend us from Anka. I cannot believe I forgot to bring that up. I think the biggest pivotal moments for me in End of Dragons are Mai Trent's death, as she becomes the person she's trying to be. She's trying to do better. She can't make up for what she did before, but she can try and do better today. It's Aurene going to sleep, resting and locking herself away so that dragon magic cannot affect anything else. It's Kunavang finally being freed of her duty from all these years and the loss of all her friends that used to help her as the champion of Suwan. And it's Rama having to confront the man that he considers a father in a lot of ways, but choosing justice. And the last one, my fifth of the 5 that are my favorite big story moments in End of Dragons, is when you get to go back and Jory and Cass officially declare they're going to get married. And it's a really good moment because you get to talk to everybody. You get to talk to Gorik and Taimi and Logan and Rox and Ritlock and Kanak and Bram. And then you get the proposition, the proposing, as it were. And it's a really beautiful moment. And it's also kind of bittersweet because it leaves you with this is probably the end for these characters and this story, right? They may come back individually for stuff later, but the guild is done. Our job is over. Dragon's Watch doesn't need to watch dragons anymore because they're gone. And I think that's where End of Dragons really succeeds in my mind, is because it is a goodbye, but it's a bittersweet goodbye. Because it's not just goodbye, it's, hey, we could see each other again. But it's goodbye because they're all moving on to do what makes them happy. We don't know how long Taimi's got, but she and Gorik, they're moving forward together. Gorik may not have Blish anymore, but he's got Taimi, and he's going to take care of her for as long as he can. And he's working with Rama in this new detective business. Logan's going to go take a vacation. He's earned it. Rox is going to go back with the Omicron. She's got a mate now, and she's doing great. Ritlock and Krisha maybe have something going on again. And they're working together to try and rebuild the Shar. Kanak has his club, and he's more than happy with that. And Bram's okay. He's doing. I think we need to check in with Bram, what he's doing. And what about the rest, right? Kaith, she's gone. Who knows where she's going to go, what she's going to do, right? She's going to take care of the bloom and be there with them, the crystal. And what about everybody else? Rama's going to go back to his job? Well, no, he's not, because that leads us into what lies beneath. It's now 6 a.m. my time. 7 hours straight. I've completed the base End of Dragons, and I'm about to step into the post End of Dragons stuff to try and get ready for Secrets of the Obscure. I'm almost there. I'm honestly not that sleepy anymore. I think I've reached that point now where I've like peeked over the edge of that. And I'm just like, yeah, look, I'm really enjoying this. This has been fun so far. We just had a party, me and the crew. So, you know, let's keep it rolling. So yeah, we're gonna keep going. This is, yeah. I think we might just finish it. I don't know how long these chapters are, but I think we might just finish it. Where Rama is going to become a detective with Gorik. Ayumi went back with her people too, and is making a difference there, as I mentioned. And Yvonne is trying to put together all the ether blades that have been lost and scattered. Rama's moved on. He tries to win over men. It doesn't go super great. Yao calls and needs help, so Gorik takes the job. And we're on the case into Gyala Delve. And this was a fun set of story, right? It felt kind of disconnected in a lot of ways from End of Dragons. But this is what I want from any more stuff we get in Cantha. I don't want big world-ending stuff with these characters. I want little things that let us see how they're doing and what's going on. And this leads us into a really good chunk of story in my mind where Gorik, Taimi, and Yao are trying to figure out what's going on. We have Gorik trying to put everything into perspective. A really good set of story where it's just him talking into a recorder as he's trying to get everything into perspective for himself with what's going on. There are emotions being used and some horrible things being shown back to him from a creature that's in the depths of the Gyala Delve. And this leads to Cholmu and the breakdown that he has with Yao, which is really good as they try to reconnect. It leads to Rama having to make peace with his past and move forward as a person, which is what allows him later to ask Min out, and she accepts. There's so much wonderful little stuff in here, but I don't feel like there's much to talk about because a lot of it is just the arcs coming to a close for these characters. It's Yao finally making peace again with Cholmu, as I said, and getting to see Cholmu's angle on it. You know, it's Rama and Min moving forward. It's Gorik becoming even more of the man he needs to be able to move forward in his life and move past what happened with Blish and everything there. It's really good stuff. And this leads to the date, and we get to bring a date with us. And so I brought Kanak because, again, he did not die, and that commenter lied to me. Please don't spoil me for stuff. No, it was really good. And I think in a lot of ways, that's where I'm at with End of Dragons, is I like it a lot. I think there's a lot of missteps in here. I don't feel like I ever fully understood Anka's motivation. And I got the audio logs, right? The rest of the Ether Blades didn't really feel like characters. The Empress kind of doesn't matter shortly after she's introduced. But the characters that we do get time with, I really like. I feel like we didn't get enough of Suwan for her big moment to hit as hard as it should. But it still hit because of Aurene, right? I really like what they do with Gorik and Rama in this expansion. I really like Yao. I really like Mai Tren. And again, as much as her arc got cut short, she did what she felt was right. And she protected people. And it's good stuff, right? A lot of it kind of feels like it didn't matter. Like Arborstone and I don't know, everything there, and the library there, and the characters you can meet there. Echovald Vials kind of just feels like an addition to the game, like it's stapled on, right? It doesn't really feel like it even had a lot of story importance. But I really like the meta for Dragon's End, right? Like, I'm so torn on End of Dragons, because Heart of Thorns was a slam dunk for me. Path of Fire was really good for me. End of Dragons being the third big expansion, I walk away from it with a lot more, man, I don't know how I feel about this moments, but also a lot of, man, I really love this moments. I guess I'm really just torn on End of Dragons, and I don't know how I feel about it. And I waited to record this review because I thought I would understand how I feel about it. I thought at some point it would all just click together and make perfect sense, and it didn't. So I guess I'm just gonna have to live with being torn on it. But overall, I think I did enjoy it. I really did. And some people, again, might try and say, well, that's because you just did it all at one time. But there's really not a difference between sitting down and playing it in one sitting over the course of 15, 16 hours and playing it 4 hours at a time over 4 different days. I still experience the story. I still really like the characters. And there's some moments that are hard-hitting and I'm going to remember forever, right? I just think it feels to me like End of Dragons had so much scope. Like it was so wide, but it didn't quite get as deep as it was trying to get, right? And that's a shame because I feel like they tried to tell a much bigger story than they tell here, but the story that they do tell is really, really good. So I don't know. Tell me your thoughts in the comment section down below. I've rambled enough on this one. I'm looking forward to Secrets of the Obscure. I miss when I was uncharacteristically like, yes, without question, this is great in the early sections of the story, right? This feels to me a lot more like the personal story, but a lot less focused. Where the personal story was very focused, it was not always great, but the good stuff was great, and the bad stuff was bad. This is way more spread out and all over the place of, like, shotgun fired, of, man, that good stuff is incredible. Man, I don't know what's going on with a lot of the other stuff, you know? But let me know your thoughts. I'll quit rambling in the comment section down below. And until next time, I've been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. Remember to always drew the full spectrum. That End of Dragons has to offer. I did it. With 15 minutes to spare. Barely even read that clock. 14 minutes to spare. I did it. Oh. Beat Into Dragons. I'll do a full review. This will be a part of the video probably. I'll edit it. Need to sleep, but Secrets of the Obscure is 14 minutes, so I mean...